There is a truth about your life that you have been carefully avoiding, not because you are weak and not because you are incapable, but because if you fully accepted it, if you let it settle into your bones without resistance, it would dismantle the version of yourself you've been protecting for years. The truth is this: nothing was ever holding you back. Not your past, not your parents, not your circumstances, not the people who doubted you, not the opportunities you didn't get, and definitely not the world. Because if any of those things were truly the reason, then everyone who came from less than you would still be stuck, and they're not. Which leaves you with something far more uncomfortable. It leaves you with yourself. And that is where most people quietly retreat, because blaming the world is painful, but it is survivable. Blaming yourself, on the other hand, feels like stepping into a mirror that doesn't lie. So instead, you built a story, a carefully constructed narrative where you are the almost successful, the almost disciplined, the almost consistent, the almost version of what you could have been if only things had been different. But things were never the problem. You were. And before you reject that, before you feel the instinct to defend yourself, understand this clearly. This is not an attack, it is an invitation. Because the same truth that strips away your excuses also hands you something infinitely more powerful: control. But control is dangerous because once you realize you have it, you can no longer hide behind the idea that you don't. And most people don't want control. They want comfort. They want a life where failure can be explained away, where mediocrity has a reasonable justification, where stagnation feels like something that just happened to them. Because that story protects the ego. It says, I could have been more, but life got in the way. And that lie is seductive, but it is still a lie. Look at your life, not the highlight reel, not the potential, not the intentions, but the reality. Your habits, your discipline, your focus, your decisions when no one was watching. Because that is the only place your life has ever been shaped. Not in dramatic moments, not in rare opportunities, but in the quiet, repeated choices you made when it was inconvenient to do the right thing. And if you are honest, brutally honest, you didn't lose because you were stopped. You lost because you stopped yourself. You stopped when it got uncomfortable. You stopped when it required consistency. You stopped when the results didn't come fast enough. You stopped when no one was applauding. And then you told yourself a story to make that stopping feel justified. That is how it works. The human mind is not designed to seek truth. It is designed to protect identity. And if your identity is built around the idea that you are capable but unlucky, talented but misunderstood, ambitious but blocked, then your mind will filter reality to preserve that image. You won't see your avoidance as avoidance. You will see it as being tired. You won't see your inconsistency as weakness. You will call it needing balance. You won't see your fear as fear. You will label it waiting for the right time. But there is no right time. There is only action, or the absence of it. And the absence of it compounds, day after day, week after week, year after year, until one day you wake up and realize you are not where you thought you would be. And the easiest thing to do in that moment is to look outward, to blame timing, to blame people, to blame luck. But the hardest and most accurate thing you can do is to look inward and admit, I didn't do what I needed to do. That sentence alone separates two types of people: the ones who spend their lives explaining and the ones who spend their lives evolving. Because explanation keeps you stuck. It gives you language without transformation, insight without action, awareness without change. Evolution is different. Evolution is brutal. It demands that you confront every version of yourself that chose comfort over growth, every time you knew what to do and didn't do it, every time you lowered your standards to match your discipline, every time you negotiated with your own potential. And you did that more than you want to admit, not because you're broken, but because you're human. And humans are wired to avoid pain, even if that pain is necessary. But avoiding short-term pain creates long-term suffering. Every time you avoided discipline, you built regret. Every time you avoided effort, you built weakness. Every time you avoided responsibility, you built dependence. And over time, that accumulation becomes your life. Not because life is unfair, but because you were unfair to your own potential. You expected results without becoming the person capable of producing them. You wanted outcomes without earning them. You wanted change without sacrifice. And reality does not negotiate with that.
It simply reflects it. Life is not happening to you. It is responding to you, your habits, your standards, your consistency, your willingness to endure discomfort without collapsing. And when you understand that, truly understand it, everything shifts. Because suddenly the question is no longer, why is this happening to me? It becomes, what am I doing that's creating this? And that question is dangerous because it leads to answers, and those answers expose patterns, and those patterns demand change. And change requires something most people avoid at all costs: responsibility. Not partial responsibility, not selective responsibility, but total responsibility for your actions, your results, your direction, and your stagnation. Because the moment you take full responsibility, you eliminate every excuse. And without excuses, you are left with only one option: action. Consistent, disciplined, uncomfortable action. The kind that does not feel good, the kind that does not get applause, the kind that requires you to become someone different. Because that is the real barrier. It was never external, it was identity. You are trying to create a life that your current identity cannot sustain. You want success, but you still think like someone who avoids effort. You want discipline, but you still act like someone who negotiates with discomfort. You want respect, but you still behave in ways that do not demand it. And until that changes, nothing else will, because your life will always match who you are, not who you wish you were. That is why people stay stuck. Not because they lack opportunity, but because they refuse to outgrow the version of themselves that created their current situation. Growth is not about adding something new. It is about removing what no longer serves you. The excuses, the distractions, the habits that keep you small. And that process is not comfortable. It feels like loss because you are losing the identity that kept you safe, the identity that allowed you to explain your life instead of taking control of it. But on the other side of that loss is clarity. Clarity about what needs to be done, clarity about what matters, clarity about who you need to become. And with clarity comes power. Not emotional hype, not temporary motivation, but real power. The kind that shows up in your behavior, in your discipline, in your consistency, in your ability to do what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel. Because feelings are unreliable. They fluctuate, they weaken, they disappear when things get hard. But standards don't. Standards are what you operate on when motivation is gone. And if your standards are low, your life will reflect that. If your standards are negotiable, your results will be inconsistent. But if your standards are absolute, everything changes, because now action is no longer optional, it is required, not by the world, but by you. And that is the shift. You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop waiting for the right moment. You stop waiting for permission. You move not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. And over time, that movement compounds. Small actions turn into habits. Habits turn into identity. Identity turns into reality. And suddenly, you are no longer the person who explains why things didn't work. You are the person who makes them work. Not perfectly, not effortlessly, but consistently. And consistency is what separates those who change their lives from those who talk about it. So understand this clearly. You were never stuck. You were undecided. You were never blocked. You were inconsistent. You were never unlucky. You were unwilling to do what was required for long enough. And once you accept that, you gain something most people spend their entire lives chasing: freedom. Not the illusion of freedom, but real freedom. The kind that comes from knowing your life is in your hands, that your future is not a mystery, it is a reflection of your actions, and that means you can change it. Not overnight, not magically, but deliberately, step by step, choice by choice, day by day. But only if you stop avoiding the truth, because the truth is not here to comfort you. It is here to transform you. And transformation begins the moment you stop asking, Why is this happening to me? And start asking, what am I going to do about it? That is the moment everything changes. That is the moment you stop being a spectator in your own life and start becoming the one who shapes it. So, the question is simple. Now that you see it, now that you know, are you going to keep avoiding the truth, or are you finally going to act on it? Because the truth has been waiting for you, not to judge you, but to wake you up. And once you're awake, there is no going back. If this hit deeper than motivation, if it exposed something real, then don't just nod and move on. Apply it. Share it with someone who needs to hear the truth, and subscribe for more content that challenges you to become who you're capable of being.